On today's episode of It Would Seem As Though, we're going to have a bit of a trigger warning because we are going to talk about drugs. Now, what all that will entail, I don't know because I never know until it happens. But if that is an issue for you, I recommend that you stop here.
It would seem as though.
It would seem as though we are back for another week of podcasting, merriment, and nonsense. For the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Mostly nothing. Sorry.
No, right there?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm perfect. I'm great. Everything's great.
Oh, good. I'm Vesta.
I'm Annika.
You sound all out of breath. You're too young to be out of breath from a little cough.
And listen.
Ooh.
Emphysema.
Emphysema.
No, just kidding. Ain't got it.
Wait, wasn't that queen we saw when we were out at emphysema? No?
Go home.
No, I am home.
Oh.
I am home.
I say that no matter where I'm at. Sometimes at my own house I say, I need to go home.
Right. I've had enough. I'm going home.
Yeah, exactly.
I realized that I mentioned this in the little... I did a little pre-tag to our show, just giving a trigger warning because we're talking about...
good, because I was going to.
We're talking about the drugs today. So if you indeed have a problem with that, we completely understand if you need to shut us off and go elsewhere. Still like the episode. And
But this is what I'll say, is also, we're not going to talk about... You should just listen. I should think you should just listen. What we have to say is interesting and different, and I have knowledge. Okay?
And maybe a little cautionary tale here and there.
Yeah, maybe it's cautionary tale. Maybe you'll learn something you didn't know. Okay, so listen. God.
But before we get to that, I want to talk about kind of my week. Just kind of,
Yeah.
because it was the last week before school started.
Woo woo.
On Friday, I took the kids to see a movie. It was very cute because they were like, we haven't done anything fun this summer. It's like, it doesn't matter that I bought them a trampoline and put it in the backyard. But
and literally right before summer, you went to Disneyland. Like,
blah, blah. But that was not fun, and it was not during the summer. And so I went to a movie on Friday, and then Saturday was $3 movie day at all the theaters. Mm-hmm. So we went to the movie on Saturday as well. But we went to Clackamas Town Center. I haven't been to the mall in forever.
Right.
And there's a reason.
Yeah.
And then the kids were like, let's go walk around the mall.
Absolutely not.
Why? I don't want to. But we did. I was like, well... So we went from the middle down to, I think, the JCPenney end and back. Okay. Maybe it was the other. I don't know. It's the end where Nordstrom used to be. So that end and back.
That's like the Sears end of the mall.
Okay.
Which is no longer there either.
Right. There's really nothing to even do or see.
No.
I mean, there's a lot of overpriced crap and whatever. But whatever, we did it. And then on Sunday, we went to the beach. So I'm trying to pack in as much fun as I can.
Literally.
So we went to the beach, and it was lovely. It was 70 degrees, and then it got a little sprinkly. But like everybody else had the same idea, so it was very crowded at the beach.
Well, girl, I know, because Saturday? Sunday, I was at work, and every customer that came through, because it was so nice, they're all going to the beach, and it was like Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
So everybody went to the beach, and I was like, woof, no thank you.
But what I really, the experience that made me kind of... it made me think of you the whole time I was there was yesterday when we went to OMSI. And for those of you who are not from here, that's the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry.
It's rad. It's really, really cool.
It's super cool. And right now they have... one of their exhibits is...
James Cameron.
James Cameron. It's called the Deep Ocean or Ocean Challenge. Deep Ocean Challenge, I think. But what it is, it's all about how he and his team of people have completely changed how we can explore the ocean. Because up until fairly recently, and actually it was up until he started wanting to film Titanic, that people just didn't go. No one had been down to the Titanic because it's so far down. And it's not safe to do, right? And so he helped create this spherical kind of ship that could go down there. Well, that's not really terribly far down in the ocean in comparison. So where we went yesterday, the one we were watching.
Do you know
yesterday,
how deep is the Titanic? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't look that up, but I do know that he went to this trench. One was called the Mariana Trench, and one is like the Great British Isle Trench, and it's 7 miles deep. And the whole time I was watching this, because it was this cool exhibit where you got to learn different things, but then it was a movie that went along with it. And in the movie, it showed that when he did the test run the first time on the submersive that he did, they got down 3 mile. It was him by himself, because it's
tiny.
It's this very long ship, but the pod part that he actually rides in it's about the size of like one of those balls that you can go inside and roll in.
Yeah, okay.
But it's also full of equipment, and he's 6'4".
Ugh.
So he's like all bunched up in there with all of his equipment or whatever. He gets 3 miles down when all of his equipment stops working.
You know, this is when you should be doing drugs. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's like he can't contact anybody on the surface. They can't hear him. His engine's cut out. His lights cut out. His computer cuts out. And it's like, as he's plummeting, basically towards his death, because had he not figured out how to, save himself, basically, he would have crashed into the bottom, because he's going down pretty fast. But one of the things they do is they have these weights. So once they've landed on the bottom and they're ready to go back up, they eject these weights and it shoots them back up. But they have this propellant system that will slow them down if it's working, but it wasn't working. So fortunately, the weight system was working, and so he was able to eject the weight system and go back up. But 3 miles down, and you're like, well, here's where it ends.
And I'm plummeting further. It's a literal fucking nightmare.
I know. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm just thinking about you sweating.
Oh my God.
And panicking with your thalassophobia.
Oh my God.
And if you were with us last week, you know that Annika has thalassophobia, which is a fear of deep water.
Yeah.
Well, and what's crazy is he gets down there, and they make it work, and he does another trial run, whatever, and he gets down 7 miles deep, but the things that are floating by his ship, it's not a ship, it's a submersive.
His ball.
Are like, what the hell is that thing? But they were like giant sea cucumbers that looked kind of squid-like. But one of the things that went by his ship was the biggest squid I've ever seen. No. And I'm all, just get out of there.
Just leave.
However,
it's not your home.
all of the billionaires who are like, I want to go to space.
Yeah.
He actually is doing this to help with the study of the shifting of the tectonic plates, which is what causes volcanoes to erupt, and which is what causes earthquakes.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you could study that, and if you might be able to predict tsunamis, earthquakes, and all of that kind of stuff. So I was like, at least he's doing it for a reason. And it's him doing it with National Geographic, with a science team.
Like, it's not some whiteys flying to space while the world fucking burns.
I am so rich, I have nothing else to do with my money, so I'm going to go to space.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. So that was interesting. I enjoyed that. That was really interesting. It was also really terrifying.
Yeah, I mean...
Because first of all, I'm not crunching myself into a ball.
I know. Just touch your toes for 12 hours. No thanks.
Well, and one of the times he was down there, or in the thing, he was in there for over 6 hours.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely.
When they filmed Titanic, he was in a similar thing. And it was only... The cameras that they used underwater were only able to get, I think he said, 22 seconds of footage each time they went down. So he would have to go all the way down there.
Oh, I found out it's 13,000 feet deep, so it's over 2 miles deep.
Okay. So pretty damn deep.
Pretty damn deep.
That you couldn't be just like a scuba diver, because you would die.
Oh my God.
No thanks.
God, it's so gross.
I still want no part of it.
No.
But we also learned about a German warship called the Bismarck, which was sunk in World War II, partially by the British, partially by themselves, because once the British started shelling them, they knew that there was no way they could continue on. One of the interesting things was the inside hull was completely intact, because although they shredded up the outside and it was definitely going to sink, the inside was fine, and folks speculate that the inside of the ship is probably kind of like a time capsule, because no water could get into it. So all these years later, what are we, like 80 years later? Right? Yeah.
Something.
It's still no one can go down there. You can't touch it. You can't go inside it because it is considered a war grave.
Yeah, well, that room is probably filled with people.
Yes. Yeah. So I just thought that was super fascinating.
That's crazy, though.
Yeah, it was crazy, but it was interesting.
Yeah. Upsetting.
Yeah. But that's what I did this week.
And that's the end of our podcast. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Yay. Also, because every week I like to talk about queer stuff.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that there was a whole bunch of queer things coming out, documentaries, movies, TV shows, that I just wanted to give a quick little mention to. There's a documentary coming to theaters called Loving Highsmith, and it's about Patricia Highsmith, who wrote The Talented Mr. Ripley, Strangers on a Train, other things, who was a lesbian.
Oh, nor.
And she recently, her diaries and stuff were released. And so this woman who made this, it's basically stuff from her diaries and pictures and clips of movies and different things about her life.
Cool.
So yeah, love that. There's a movie, another documentary called Moon Age Daydream about David Bowie. And it's about specifically the period of time where he was Ziggy Stardust.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's all where the beginning of glam rock.
Yep.
And his whole kind of being a gender, I would have to say gender neutral more than anything. Yeah. Because he was, or gender
queer, I would say is what David was.
But it was also when he identified as being queer, and then later was like, no, I'm just kidding, I'm straight.
LOL.
His family and his family and his his estate, have approved this documentary. So I like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, why wouldn't they? His wife is Iman.
Right, but this is the first one that's been made about him that they approved of.
Oh, wow.
So, right. So that's also coming. There's a movie coming out, and I think it's coming out in theaters. It's called Blonde, and it's about Marilyn Monroe. Mm-hmm. And it's from a novel that was written, and I've just forgotten who wrote it, famous author, but it's the first movie to come out in many, many years that's rated NC-17. So I'm wondering if that's because I guess it deals with her, of course, her sexual, part of her life, but her sexual abuse as well. And I'm wondering if they decided to go graphic with that, because I think that's unnecessary. But one of the reasons that's in the queer kind of stuff is because what I didn't know was that Marilyn Monroe was very big on queer alliances and being like promoting queer. She had a lot of queer friends, and was like,
well, she
all
also
about
had
their rights.
She had like all the marginalized friends because she also was like helped get a lot of black folk into white clubs and would like sit front row to watch them.
I did know that.
Yeah, like she was all about it, and they killed her.
Right. So there is a mini-series, docu-series coming on Shudder called Queer for Fear. Yeah. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Are you gonna watch it?
Yeah, because it's I think what I think it is about. It's like a documentary, right? So it's like different things that how queerness and horror is like intertwined. Right. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. Of course, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, it's all about how the queer characters. Well, they're always the first ones to die in the horror films. Those and the virgins, right? The girls who.
Well, and I told you before when we've had this conversation about this is like not horror necessarily, but like a lot of villains in shows and movies. Disney villains are queer coded,
Yes.
Scar, for example, any wizard. Do you know what I mean? Jafar,
right.
Like think of any. I think even Maleficent.
It's funny to me that after Harry Potter, all the movies and books were done, that J.K. Rowling was doing that Potterverse stuff, and she'd be like, "Oh, by the way, Dumbledore's gay."
Yeah.
Well, at that point, it was like, what is the point of that?
Yeah.
It's like,
you didn't put it in the books, which okay, cool, I guess, but
now in the newest movie, I don't care, Fantastic Beasts, it's he talks about him being in love with Grindelwald. So whatever. A movie, Billy Eichner.
Oh, I love
called
Billy
Bros.
Eichner.
And that's what's crazy to me. So it's a Judd Apatow movie. It's the first major like rom-com that's queer.
Yeah.
And it's getting really good reviews.
Yep.
So go figure.
Yeah, and like when you said major, that's for sure. Because on, obviously Pride Month, they always have like queer romance and whatever. And there's some new ones that come out that are cute, but like I like that this is going to go to theater.
Yeah. Netflix has which you were saying about, is called Sandman.
Okay.
And the lead actor is non-binary.
Okay.
There's an actress who plays a genderless Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh yeah, also the actor who plays Lucifer is the same person who plays Brienne of Tarth on Game of Thrones. Gwendolyn Christie,
yes,
I think her name is.
Yes, that is right.
Amazing. Anyway, and there's another character who is the personification of Desire, but Desire is like a very effeminate male who's hypersexual. But the show is really good. It's based off a comic by Neil Gaiman, who also made like American Gods. He is a amazing author, but it's about the main character. His name is Dream. He's the personification of Dream. So it's all very Greek mythology, but based in modern time. And just like what happens when he goes through, and his 7 siblings, which are like death and destiny and desire, dream, delusion, someone else, I can't remember. But yeah, so it's very good. It's very intense. But it's like witchcraft and wizardry because they're all technically gods. So yeah, it's good. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other one that I wanted to mention, which I've known about for a long time, I've been waiting for it to come out. Pam Cutt's Docorama is a series of documentaries. But the one that I've been waiting for is the one called Workhorse Queen. Okay. And it's about Mrs. Kasha Davis.
Okay, yeah.
Who, for those of you who watch Drag Race faithfully, she was season 7 Drag Race. Sent home too early, and
agreed.
I think wrongly. She's an amazing queen, funny, brilliant, love her. But it's a documentary about her and how she is kind of not your typical queen. She's not had your typical rise to fame or whatever you want to call it, because she was already older when she started. Yeah. She was also a raging alcoholic. Same. And now she's several years sober. And most things she does are with her husband, Mr.
Kasha Davis. Yeah.
Although they just call him Mr. Davis. But which is just funny to me that she has patterned this whole character kind of on a 1950s housewife.
Yeah. And she's great.
But turned it upside down on its head by being this crazy drag queen. And she is great. She's wonderful. And so I can't wait to see that. It's going to be playing here in Portland at the Portland Art Museum in like the whole series. Okay. So I just saw that in the Willamette Week. But I'm interested to see that because love her. Yeah. But also really documentaries about queer people. I'm there.
I'm in.
Yeah.
And go. Same. It's true.
And that's kind of my side topic. So why don't we take a break right there? A little early for when we normally take a break. But let's take a break. And then we will come back and talk about our real topic.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, hi, hello, back. We're back.
Hey, we're back.
We're back, and we're doing
back
drugs.
Just kidding.
We're
doing drugs. Right now, as we speak.
All of them.
I'm drinking my...
Do you know what a mukbang is?
Decaf coffee. I do know what a mukbang is.
When people get like a bunch of food and they're all...
doing a drug mukbang.
We're doing a drug mukbang, girl. Bye!
We're all... See you. So in a few minutes, if we become completely incoherent, you will know
It's
why.
a moment of silence for everyone. Because bye.
We'll be face down on the table or... doing God knows what. That's the fun. I think that's kind of, for me, the funny thing about drugs. So growing up, well, no, I'm not going to go. I will go back to, I'll jump back to that. So being a young person in the queer community, in the club scene, everyone I knew did drugs.
Yeah.
But me.
Right.
And most of my, it's like that whole peer pressure nonsense. I never had that. None of my friends were ever like, you should come do drugs with us. They were all like, more for us, bitch. Yeah. You don't need to do drugs.
You can be the DD bitch.
Well, not only that, but I think they all realized that I just was not the one. Because they're like, we don't want this one being high, because God knows she's goofy enough.
Meltdown.
And the very few times I actually did drugs, they had kind of different effects on me than most people say they experience.
Yeah.
So drugs were just never my thing.
Totally.
Now, I've tried them, and we are going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I do want to start with kind of my learning that other people did drugs. I was in I grew up in a small town.
Did ya?
I was this, nerdy kid who just didn't really seem to fit in anywhere except in, like, theater. And most of my friends were super straight-laced, goody two-shoes like me, who were just, like, trying to get through it all without getting into trouble.
Yeah.
And so when I was a junior in high school, I think it was my junior year, beginning of my junior year, there was this survey that was given to all the kids in my school. Mm-hmm. And it was your knowledge and experience with drugs. And I'm all, well, I don't know anybody who's doing drugs, so I'm going to, and as I filled this out, I was just like, this is silly. And I, of course, was probably the only kid in the school who's like, never, nothing.
I don't even know what a drug is.
What
aspirin? Is that what you're referring to? Aspirin?
And mind you, so because I am of my generation, the movies they showed us in health class about drugs, it's like shows this guy, taking a couple puffs off a joint and then jumping off the top of his building because he thinks he can fly.
Right.
And they were so now, of course I know, they were so ridiculous and so over the top that it was like, oh my God, I'm so scared I'm going to do drugs. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to think I'm, do crazy things. Well, after the survey was all sent in and calculated and tallied and blah, 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 they sent us the results, the school, and the school shared them with us, which I was surprised about. But they said but we got the results back, and it said basically that per capita, our school had one of the highest drug experience, or whatever you want to call it, of the schools that they had been surveying. And of course I'm young and dumb, and I'm like, wait, what? And it was like, basically, because my school was so small, my whole high school was 400 kids, that it was a huge percentage, and they were surprised that many people out of that small group were experienced in drugs. And of course, then the school's like, we need to do something about this. Well, what the hell are you going to do?
Yeah, how are you going to know? Well, and this is the thing I'm going to say about that. It's first of all the country. Like, we grew up
What else are you gonna do?
We grew up same town. We went to the same high school until I broke out. And so I get that place. But I remember kids chewing. Like, I remember kids smoking, and so that right there. But
and I didn't consider that drugs.
Exactly, and I think that's the framework, right? We think of drugs as like heroin and meth and marijuana and cocaine, but like, in your life alone, you probably were around nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, diet pills, marijuana. Like, probably your friends, you had siblings, your mom was addicted to caffeine, your stepdad was an alcoholic, everyone smoked, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Diet pills were all the rage, right?
Yeah, and you get them over the counter.
So it's funny that, like, it's just what and this will go into later what I have to say about blanket statements and drugs, because everybody... most people are addicted to something, and you can tell me you're not, but unless you're like a Buddhist monk or a Mormon, no, that's not true. Mormons are still addicted, but like, you more than likely are addicted.
Okay, so I'm going to go on a little side note there about the Mormons. It's funny to me that for the longest time, caffeine was verboten in the Mormon religion until they bought Coca-Cola.
Okay, but I have to tell you something. There are Mormons who believe that they can't drink coffee or tea because of the carcinogens that are in the coffee and tea, but they can drink like energy drinks or...
That's crazy.
Dumb as fuck to me. But yeah, I've had plenty of Mormon friends in my life, and I said, why are you drinking that? Are you really a Mormon? And they're like, no, we just can't drink coffee and tea. And I'm like, you're afraid of the carcinogens in coffee and tea over a monster? Like, that sounds like bad math. I don't know. It sounds like you don't pay attention.
Right. Well, and so shortly after this... After this survey and after me realizing that my friends are a bunch of drug addicts. And, of course, for me at that time, there really was no gray.
No, it was like,
either you're a
drug addict now?
Pure and clean, or you're a drug addict.
I'll pray for you.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't praying for anybody. But my friend Shelly.
Oh, Shelly.
She one day says to me, she's like, why don't you walk to the park with me for lunch? And I was like...
I don't want to.
Well, and because, the park was all the way on the other side of town.
Yes.
Which, by the way, a block and a half.
It's still far.
It's so far. And it was the creepy fucking park. Because it was that Beulah Park down in the, the one on the outskirts of town.
Wait, is that
honest to God, the
going
town,
towards Carlton?
Yeah.
That's where they have like derby days.
Yeah. But in the off season, it's just creepy because it's all those buildings where they have the things, but they're all sitting there empty.
And they had like when I was younger, they had a huge like boxcar racer
Yeah.
ramp, and it was tall as fuck. And I'd be like, how do our children not climbing this and dying? But
that was the question.
Yeah.
Maybe they were. They just kept it.
they were like, bury that one.
No one will know. Anyway, so it took a bit of convincing, but I went to the park with my friend, and then she was going there so she could smoke weed on her lunch break.
How dare she?
I know, and I was like, oh, no, I've never done this.
Miss Ma'am, do you
and
not
she was
know?
like, basically, girl, you need to lighten up. You need to... And so for the very first time, my junior year of high school, so by this point I'm 17.
Oh my God.
I tried
marijuana
for the first time. And here's the funny part. Well, it's all kind of funny. So it was at lunch break, which means we're coming back for fifth period, right?
Sure.
And when I get back to school, I am so hyper paranoid.
Oh, I bet.
Everybody knows I smoke pot. They're all looking at me. They're all going, "What's wrong with her? She's high." Blah blah blah. You know, nobody was looking at me any more than they ever looked at me. Whatever. And who knows? I didn't.
Right.
But the worst part is fifth period was my favorite class, and I fell asleep in fifth period. And then when I got my progress report, which you get like halfway through the 9-week course, it said I was failing. I had never failed anything in my life.
You were failing?
I was failing because I kept falling asleep. I couldn't stay awake in fifth period.
Weird.
And that was it. I'm done. That was my big drug career of smoking pot. And so from that point until I think a year or two out of high school.
She went into the nunnery after that.
I did.
She was like, nope, the
nunnery.
devil's let us.
But here's my kind of ridiculous story about that. I was at my brother's house. I was out of high school. I was 18 or 19. And I hadn't smoked pot since high school. And like it's been so long. But it had been like probably a couple years. And his roommate was like, "Hey, I want you to come smoke some weed with me." And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "No, it's really good." And I said, "It doesn't matter." I said, "It'll just make me fall asleep."
Yeah.
"No, this is super good. It's like Maui Wowie. I want you to come smoke." I was like, "No."
You're like, what?
Dude, I don't want to. And honestly, I will fall asleep. It'll be a waste of your drugs.
Yeah.
Please, no, just go. And he's like, "Come on, I don't want to do it by myself." But fine. I was like, fine. But know that I will fall asleep. Mm-hmm. Well,
maybe that
so
was
I went
his
with him, I
intention.
smoked some weed, I fell asleep. And then he was mad at me because I fell asleep. And I was like, dumbass.
Can you not hear
I
good?
told you I would fall asleep.
Can you not hear good, sir?
Right? What's your problem?
And your early 20s or whatever you are.
And that was it for me. And then I never smoked weed again for many, many, many years. And now I do, as you know, the occasional like edible and stuff.
Yeah.
Because smoking it makes me want to die because it burns the entirety of my throat.
Yeah.
And it makes me so high.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I'm going to die.
Sure, I get that.
But
Kind of.
now that I have found kind of an edible that does not make me feel like that, it just makes me relax.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
I can do that.
I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, so my journey with Los Drogos is different. It's different. But it oddly, I mean, again, growing up in the country, the first drug that I ever encountered was alcohol.
Sure.
Because the country, and I remember special occasions or camping or a birthday or whatever. If there was booze, my biological father and my stepmother would always like give us some, and sometimes it was like, what is it called? It was like sweet wine, like Arbor Mist or whatever it is, right? And it would be like strawberry, delicious. It was still alcohol that
So
you
like
were
a wine spritzer,
kind of, yeah. You were feeding children booze, right? But I remember having like tequila rose. I remember drinking like random booze because they were, you can have some. And my biological father, all he used to drink, like his drink of choice, if he was drinking, was like Black Velvet and Pepsi. And I was like, this is like the trash version of Jack and Coke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he wasn't a drinker. That's one thing I will say. He didn't really drink alcohol very often. So alcohol was it. I started drinking coffee really early. I was like addicted to caffeine by the time I was like 14 years old.
Wow.
But because I had, I always had like early classes and I was an overachiever. And then when I got to high school, I had a 0 period, which means I had to be in class before, I had a whole period before first period even started, right? So I had to be at school at like 6 in the morning, like awful. But nerd. Anyway, so I drink coffee, black coffee usually, roughly the temperature of the sun, because that's what grandma did.
Sure. No, I know. Because I swear to God, if it's not still boiling,
Yep.
she's like, it's tepid.
Kills me. And then there was a point in my life where I was with one of my aunts and her ex-husband and her stepchildren who are all in the military. And all her stepchildren were, and they brought their friends, and I was 11, maybe 12. And they all decided to, obviously they were drinking, doing their thing. And again, a huge portion of my family is white trash. So they decided to do whippets, which is nitrous oxide, which is the same stuff in like a whipped cream can, right? And what's interesting is I have a ton of those at work because I make my own whipped cream at work. It's the worst thing ever, but I did it. Again, I'm like 11 or 12 years old with a room full of fucking adults, and half of them are in the goddamn military. And they're like, do it. Like, not peer pressure. It's like direct pressure from adults. But I remember doing it and feeling like I was going to die because it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah,
and
I would imagine.
And it just feels like your brain's like, wah, wah, wah,
oh, no,
constantly.
thank you. No, thank you.
And then after that, I think the only thing, when the first time I ever smoked marijuana, I was 18 or 19. I think 18. So, I mean, I never did like drugs in high school. I was not that kid. And then the first time I smoked a cigarette, I was like 20 years old. So yeah, I mean, gradually, but again, that's a lot of drugs before you're 18 years old.
Yeah.
But no one, I don't know, people didn't really think anything of it. Yes, you got in trouble, but like and that was just all those things that happened, like me drinking alcohol or coffee or nitrous, for fuck's sake, was all because of circumstance, right? It wasn't like I was seeking out to do these things. Right. Unlike my siblings and my cousins who were actively trying to go seek out drug use. And I was like, no. I was much like you in that I was just like afraid of it, right? I was just like, no.
Well, and that for me really was, it was all fear-based.
Yeah.
Because, and still to this day, there are some drugs that I would never do, even
heroin.
Even if heroin,
meth,
any of those things, because it's fear-based.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I've seen what these drugs do to people. I have seen, like, the foster boys that we had in their families, what meth did to them.
Yep.
And one of our boys said to me one time, because he was talking about doing meth, and he said, I knew before I ever did it that it was addictive from the first time you did it, and that it would totally fuck you up. And I said, then why on earth did you do it? And he goes, because there is nothing like that feeling the first time you do it. It feels like, in his words, that it just grabs you by the balls and takes you for the ride of your life. And he said, and then, and only then, does it feel that way, because all the rest of the time you're trying to get that feeling back.
Oof, miserable.
And he said, and you never get it back.
No.
But you're always chasing it.
Yep.
And I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. Your friends told you that that's how it was. Your friends told you that the good and the bad, or the whatever, the good feelings, and then how bad it was. Yeah. And he's like, I just wanted to experience that. And I was like, and how did that work out for you?
Well, I mean, I get it, though. I, at some point, was young and thought I was invincible. I, at some point, did dumb fucking shit because I thought I could do it, or I could handle it, or whatever. But, I mean, granted, I never crossed that line. Meth, heroin, bath salts, anything that's, like, chemically mixed from the shit under your counter, girl, I didn't do that. You know what I mean?
Right,
that was not my jam.
No, same. But, it's, for me... I even as we were talking about doing this, so I didn't even think about alcohol because it is so normalized in our society and in most societies, really. And like in Europe, kids start drinking fairly young.
Oh yeah,
like 16.
One of my friends used to live in Luxembourg, and she was a sophomore, in high school, maybe. And maybe sophomore, junior, and her siblings were younger, but they were allowed to go to clubs and bars.
Yeah,
and
it's crazy to me.
It was crazy, yeah. I know, it is different. Canada also has, like, a drinking age of 18.
Yeah.
Mexico, I think, as well.
The first time I went to Montana, the only time, I've only been to Montana once. When I went to Montana when I was 19, the drinking age there was 18.
Right. Well, and I want to say something, though. We can allow kids to vote and to sign their bodies up to go be fucking blown away.
Right.
And to fight in senseless wars. But they can't drink. Like, that just sounds stupid to me.
It does sound stupid.
It sounds so dumb. And I think... perspective, right? Like thinking, oh my god, someone under 21 drinking, but like 21 is such an arbitrary age. Why are they adult for everything else at 18, but then drugs and alcohol, they have to be a certain age?
And I only know this from doing all the years of classes we did to be foster parents, is that 21 typically is when, specifically boys, when their brain stops developing or is finished developing in that way.
Sure.
You know, it's like, because girls, as a rule, not always, but girls as a rule, their brain develops sooner and younger.
Yeah.
So, like, critical thinking and...
Sure. So that's a good idea.
That.
Right. So the brains are still developing, so they can't drink or do drugs. But you know what we can do is send them to go murder people or fight in a war, because PTSD is going to have... Oftentimes, PTSD can have the same or worse effects than alcoholism. PTSD causes domestic violence.
Point?
Is that PTSD, it can kill people.
Blah, 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 but it's not as dangerous as alcohol.
I know, that beer, you know, it's just so silly to me. It just is all so arbitrary.
The first time I had alcohol, I was 16.
Okay.
I think I was 16. I had gone out with my aunt to, with her kids, to have pizza.
Yeah.
And we were at a place where you could get beer, and she ordered dark beer, but she also ordered root beer, and they look the same in a glass. And so I was drinking dark beer. You know, it's like she had ordered it for me.
How
basically.
funny.
And I'm 16 years old. Yeah, I would kill someone if they did that for my children now.
I know.
Of course, it's not like my mother ever found out. I didn't tell her.
No.
But she's also the same one who gave me other drugs. She gave me speed.
Oh my god.
You know, it's because speed is what you give fat kids so they can become thin.
Of course.
She also... I smoked hash
oh my god.
with her and her brother.
Just super concentrated.
And by the way, at that point I was, I think, 18. But, oh my god, I blacked out. I will tell you that one of the times I was visiting her, and this is only, I only tell this because I think it's funny. She and her friends were they were all going somewhere, but they were like, we're going to drop you off at the theater because I was going to go see Rocky Horror for the umpteenth time.
Sure.
And we did some kind of substance, which I don't remember what it was. I mean, it was a long time ago.
Sugar.
Powdered sugar. It probably was. I ate a donut. But I was like, we're driving either there or back. I don't remember. And I said to my aunt, I was like, have they changed the street lights or something? Why does the fog look purple? And she's like, it's not.
Oh, sweet baby. Go night-night.
She's like, the fog is not purple. It's your brain and you're high. And I was like, so I'm hallucinating? And she goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah, lay down. Go night-night.
Go night-night now. It's all going to be okay. It'll be normal colored fog tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I think some drugs were stigmatized a lot as a kid, but I think growing up in the country, here's the thing. Growing up in the country, you have a lot more freedom. There's a lot of places to go, you know? Same as being very in the city or a more metropolitan place, right? Like, there are more drugs. There are more people who do drugs, right?
Yes.
So I don't know which one is better, right? I don't know which one is like, what is safer to stay away from drugs? I think it just has to be you if you don't want to be around them.
I also think that... growing up in the country, typically most kids had a lot more freedom.
Yes,
but I was also raised by the
warden of Carlton.
By the warden, who was like, "You can't go anywhere unless you have at least 2 siblings with you.
You go in packs.
You have to have and the minute you get where you're going, you have to call me, let me know you're there, and you have to call me when you're leaving, so I know when you're going to be home. And if you take 2 more minutes to get home, then you should take. I'm coming to look for you. You know, honestly.
Yes.
And it sounds like I am exaggerating. I am not.
No,
I could literally not walk up to town,
which is literally blocks.
Which was blocks. It was literally 3 blocks away. Because we lived on the part where there were no businesses.
Yeah.
So I say town, but it was all town.
Yeah.
But I couldn't walk up to the little Main Street area, which was 3 blocks from our house, without someone with me.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm in middle school at this point, and even I think early high school, and it was like, really?
Same. I wasn't allowed
What
to
is
go.
going to happen to me in Carlton?
I wasn't allowed to go anywhere by myself. Honestly, I would always have to bring a sibling or my cousin or everybody. Also, learning to drive, like, that's so interesting. I didn't get my license until I lived in Portland, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had known how to drive mostly. I mean, I knew the basics, and I had, like, my permit for years at that point. But, like, Grandma never wanted to teach me how to drive. Grandma didn't want me to drive. She just wanted to have to drive me places. Isn't that interesting, though? Like,
well, and that, because I've already had this conversation with my children. When they are old enough to drive, I am going to hire a driving instructor.
Yes.
I'm not teaching them
No.
because I would probably be a shit teacher because I would be all stressed out and have, driving PTSD and be like, no, stop!
No, ma'am, no, ma'am, no, ma'am.
No, so I'm going to just have a driving instructor, whatever. But, I know that most of my friends were going to parties, were drinking, were doing whatever, and I was home with the warden, so and that's fine.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't feel like I missed out on things because I didn't drink, because I didn't drug. I mean, certainly my siblings were drinking and doing things that they shouldn't be doing, but they were also stupid and they got caught. But whatever. But it is interesting to me how. When you grow up around it, alcohol is like, man, it's just alcohol.
Yeah.
Everybody drinks.
I feel that same about, like, alcohol and cigarettes. I mean, cigarettes less
and caffeine.
now. And caffeine.
And caffeine I wouldn't have even thought of. I started drinking Diet Coke the minute it was created, which was when I was in high school. Because before that, the only diet beverage like that, soda, was Tab, which was nasty.
Okay.
I mean, it was boot nasty. It was, ugh. I don't know why people ever drank it, except it was the only thing. But then Diet Coke came out, and I'm all, ooh, Diet Coke. And I started drinking it at, like, 16. And, well, I've been drinking it ever since.
Yeah,
Now
girl, you have one right next to you.
I have one right next to me, but I mean, it has to be caffeine-free now.
Yeah.
Because I can't have caffeine. But, whatever.
Yeah, I get that.
I think it's time to take a break.
Yeah, I'm sick of it.
Go ahead.
Oh, no.
You go.
Oh, honey. What were you going to say? Because I was going to jump into other things. Psychedels.
Oh, well, I was going to... Well, that's a perfect lead-in then, because I was going to tell a story.
Okay.
Of the one of the time... I've, like I said at the beginning, like hardcore drugs, or what I consider, like bigger drugs than pot.
Yeah.
I have only done a few times because of the effects that they had on me. But I will tell you, so I had this friend, this man named Carmen, who he liked to dabble in the drugs. Actually, he was a drug dealer.
Okay.
But
he liked to profit off the dabbling of the drugs.
He did. But he also liked to imbibe. So,
yeah.
Well, one night we were at this bar.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, you want to do this with me? And I was like, what is this? And he gave me a tab of acid and then said, but now you're going to bump this with a little cocaine. And I'm all...
No, I'm not.
I'm like, I don't... what? And he's like, trust me, it'll just enhance the first experience and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. And,
but I'm scared.
But I was with a bunch of people that I knew, and I felt like I was in a safe environment.
Yeah. Lucky.
So I did the little tab of acid, and it was a tiny amount of cocaine.
Sure.
It was like, whatever. But then it was funny because he was like, and then I want you to snort a little bit of water up your nose so that you're not burning it and whatever. Well, it's not like I did it every day, so it wasn't like I was going to get the bloody nose from the cocaine.
Right.
So I did it, and I actually felt okay. I mean, I felt weird.
Yeah.
It was whatever. It was the first time I had done either of those substances.
And you did them together.
And I did them together.
Love that.
And so, but then I went to the bar where I worked, which was the Embers, and I am pretty high. But he had said to me, he's like, go have fun, go dance, go do, whatever. Because as your adrenaline is going or whatever, it just kind of boosts it up in your system. Yeah. And I was like, okay. Because I don't know anything about anything. And I was like, all right. So I get to the Embers. And it was a dance bar, but the front was a show bar, the back was a dance bar. So you'd go through the front, go through a little tunnel, and then go to the back where the dance club was. And I was going to go dancing because I'm all, woo, I'm high, I'm going to have fun.
I feel crazy.
I'm going
to go fight God. Yeah,
crazy
exactly.
lady. Well, I get there, and I am like 2 steps in, and I run into one of my friends. And they're all like, oh my God, girl, I have to tell you my sad, sad story. And I'm all inside my head going, no, no time for sad story.
No, bitch.
I'm going to go dance and have fun and be high for the first time in my life, really. But I sat, because I'm a good person.
You should stop doing that.
Sucker. I sat, I listened to their sad, sad tale.
Yeah.
And then they were done with their sad, sad tale, and I'm like, okay, get better. I'm going to dance. I swear to God, another friend stopped me, and they're like, oh my God, I have to tell you my sad, sad tale. And I'm like, no!
What is that?
Why does everybody have a sad, sad tale? It's Saturday night. There's no sad tales. No. Everybody should be happy.
There's no crying in baseball.
I promise you that I was just about to enter the dance bar when my friend, Kimberly.
God damn it, Kimberly.
I know. She's like, oh my God, I'm so sad. I was like, oh man,
you
me too. You're really, really harshing my high right now. And but her girlfriend had just broke up.
Can
with
you
her.
will you be sad later and tell me later how sad you are?
Can you save this sad for later?
Pause.
And so I sat with her, and she told me this sad tale of her horrible girlfriend and whatever. And I was like, and now I'm not high anymore.
And I hate you.
And that was that was one of 2 times that I did acid.
Yeah.
The other time, I was in a hotel with some friends at a party, and I was at the Hilton downtown.
The Hilton.
Yeah. And one of my friends was like, here, take this. And I'm like, all right. Whatever.
Bad.
Girl.
Is that when you looked in the mirror?
Yes, that was when I looked in the mirror and I'm like, what's wrong with my face? I mean, my pores are huge. I could probably stick my whole fist in this pore. And, whatever. It was. You really do hallucinate. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But then it was time to go, and my friend was like, do you need a ride home? And I was like, oh, that would be great. Because I don't know how I'm getting home. I don't have any money. I don't have a car. I'm stupid.
I'm just doing drugs in the Hilton.
I was just doing drugs in the Hilton. Not with Paris Hilton, just in the Hilton.
Right.
And so my friend was like, going to take me home. And then she's like, hey, do you want to go back to the bar? Or do you want to go home? And I'm like, the night is young and I am high. Well, the night was not young. They get me to the bar. They push me out the car. Bye. Girl, I get to the door of the bar.
And it's closed.
It's closed.
Fuck. How horrible.
But instead of panicking, I was like, oh, the Silverado's open. Although then it wasn't called Silverado. It was called Flossie's, which sounds like a cow. But I was like, I'm going to go up there because they're open all night. And I'll just go up there and hang out until I can catch a bus. Because the buses had also stopped running. And I'm not feeling like I should be worried.
Yeah.
Because I'm super high.
Why would you be worried?
Why on earth would I be worried? And so I start, and all I'm thinking is, I could really use a ride right now. And I start walking from the Embers to Flossie's at 2 a.m. or whatever time it was. And the whole time and I'm, by the way, in full drag. I'm in full geesh from head to toe. And this car comes along and they're like, hey, do you want a ride? And I was like, I do need a ride.
So this is actually a story of all the bad choices you possibly could have made.
I made all in one night. I mean, that's not all the bad choices I've made.
No, yeah.
But that day, all the bad choices.
A lot.
And get into a car with a stranger because he said, do I need a ride? And I needed a ride. And I was like,
he could have like a fucking Jason mask and a machete.
Nice. A machete. He could have.
And you're all right.
But the only thing, I get in this car and this music is playing that is just, in my opinion, at that moment, god awful.
And you told him.
And I told him, I was like, what is this you're listening to? It's horrible. What? I was like, I don't know why he didn't just push me out of his car.
If it's not disco, it's trash.
It's trash. What is this trash? And then other things happened that I will let y'all just imagine because I don't want to go into all of those details. But I made it home safely.
The next day.
I made it home safely. I had some splaining to do the next day.
Oh, my God.
Oh, God. I was like, never again.
My God. Well, that's good. I'm glad because you make fucking bad choices.
Right. There's a reason she doesn't do drugs.
Yeah.
Because she dumb.
Sorry, I didn't mean to call you dumb. Maybe I meant to call you stupid. I'm not sure.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though, right? You doing things recreationally is different than trying to do them for a different purpose. Like, having a good time, do it. Have a good time. And I think most things, most drugs, most substances should be decriminalized. I don't think they all should be legalized because that's very different, and that's government regulation, and the government's stupid. So, decriminalize. So, like, if you're like, oh no, I got caught with mushrooms on me, then you're not going to go to jail for it. You're not going to, like, waste taxpayer money to go be put in a fucking prison because you have fucking mushrooms or marijuana. Or really anything, honestly, because if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. Why not have a place where someone can go do their drug and be safe about it, opposed to on the street? Or,
by the way, I've never done mushrooms.
So here's what I will say. Mushrooms are literal magic. No, lots of cultures have used different types of psilocybin mushrooms for centuries, for millennia.
Well, and I know that Oregon's passed the law so they could use them for to study them for different medication.
Well, and so
medicinal purposes.
Once that passes, I think it's next year, anyone can go, and it's drug trials, essentially. It costs a certain amount of money, obviously. But they give you psilocybin. So it's not technically a mushroom, but they give you, like, the chemical compound that they've created. They give it to you, they put, like, a mask on you, play music, and they sit with you, and you just chill out and relax. And people have experiences. And that leads me into this class that I took called something mystics. I can't remember.
Oh, sure, something mystics. I was going to sign up for that class.
So it's something about mysticism. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But it was all about psychedelics and drug use and how that gives you religious or spiritual experiences. There's a show on Netflix called How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan.
Okay.
Michael Pollan is brilliant. He also wrote The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is a really good book about what we eat. But he wrote the book How to Change Your Mind. And he goes through using... The whole title is interesting because it's very long. But it's How to Change Your Mind, what the new science of psychedelics teaches us about consciousness, dying, addiction, depression, and transcendence. And so...
That is a long title.
People with cancer... People who are dying, people who have, like, severe mental illness will go through drug trials, essentially, and do exactly how I described it, and they describe magical things happening. They cry, they see their younger self, they see the cancer in themselves, they become, they feel at peace with what's happening. And what's interesting about psychedelics, and specifically psilocybin, that's what I'll focus on, and that's what's in mushrooms, that's what's in magic mushrooms, right? So our brains function, we have, like, neural pathways, right? But we have a default neural pathway. And think of that as, like, an interstate in your brain, connecting city to city to city. When you take, like, psilocybin, it shuts down all your default neural pathways. So it shuts down all the freeways in your brain. So what that makes the connections happen is that they have to take the old back roads or the old highways, right?
I grew up in the country. I know what's on those old back roads.
But what I'm saying, girl, is that it helps release emotion. It helps reset your emotion. It helps with memory loss. It helps with depression because your brain has to function differently. Oh. That's why people... mushrooms will give you intense, like, emotional release. If they say it resets it, I've cried, I giggle, and I usually do both at the same time.
Oh, God.
in hallucination, it's not like you see somebody or whatever. For me, I watched the movie Coco. Uh-huh. And it's just, like, there's, like, light coming off of it, and everything is bright. And literally, I remember having zero anxiety. I remember being like, let's go on a walk. And I lived in, like, Oak Grove, which was gross. But I was like, let's go do something. Like, it just really made me feel better. But yeah, I think everyone should watch the show or read the book, How to Change Your Mind, because it really focuses on psychedelics and how it had such a bad rep because of people like fucking Timothy Leary.
Oh, sure.
And if you want to read another book, read the Harvard Psychedelic Project, because Timothy Leary was a horrible person who gave psychedelics a really bad name. But, like, for centuries, for millennia, indigenous people, spiritual people have been using it.
Sure. Well, and I know, because we talked about this at one point, that it's also being used for people who are trying to break years and years of drug use habits, that it's to reset their brain, to reset their neural pathways. Because I know that Katya, who I also know from Drag Race and now many things since, has a history of drug abuse. Yeah. And has gone now to Mexico a few times to do the treatment where they specifically do it with stuff like that to kind of just reset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's something in going to Mexico. I really like that because there are traditional ways of doing it, and it's been, you know, exploited and taken and colonized and whatever. But, you know, people from like Buddhists to Taoists to Christians to Jewish people to Muslims, like everybody throughout history has done, and they call it something different, but they've all done a substance. Yes. And that's called an entheogen. And an entheogen is just a chemical substance, typically it's from a plant or something natural, that when you ingest it, it gives you an altered state of consciousness. So people do it for spiritual and religious beliefs, to have those moments. And so things like mushrooms, or there's something called the toad, which is like a secretion from a toad, and it's DMT, or ayahuasca. There's a
And I think ayahuasca is what she did when she went to Mexico.
Okay. Yeah, but there's like healers and people who are taught, like passed down in their families how to do it. And so when we try to say something is bad or wrong or whatever, putting that blanket statement on anything, I find to be problematic. You know, I think people's fear over drugs is often a lack of information or misinformation. Right? Like what you said, oh, you're going to take this and jump off a building. Like, that isn't how it works. But I remember hearing all that. I remember this is your brain on drugs, right?
Oh, God, yes.
But sometimes I use the fear when I talk about drugs, how people have this fear, the same way I refer to fear and homophobia. It's not that it's not that you're fearful, you just don't understand, right? And so, like, you don't have to be gay to like, respect, and understand gay people and accept gay people, but you also don't have to use drugs to also accept and understand that people use them.
But I do really think that there is so much misinformation.
Yes.
And then there are the drugs that are just bad, period.
Yes, no, and I get that.
And that have ruined lives and ruined families and stuff. Because I think specifically about, you know, like heroin and how that affected, you know, like my husband's growing up years because of his mother doing heroin, and how things like that, and meth destroying entire families and generations and stuff. I do think that people then lump it all into one category. It's like, well, then all drugs are bad.
Right. Well, I also think that a lot of people, when like, oh, you do heroin or meth, or they know that, and so it becomes that person is demonized. And literally, it's not, that shouldn't be the case. Now that person, after doing it, is addicted, right?
And they need help.
Well, and so, like, that's my point. It's like, you can't blanket statement marijuana and mushrooms with, you know, heroin and meth and bath salts, because you're not going to do the same thing with like nicotine or caffeine. You know what I mean? You're not going to lump that together as like a, you know, chemical drug that's going to like kill you, even though they will, you know? But I think that if you put a blanket statement, it's just very conservative, and it, I think sometimes it just shows the ignorance of the person making the claim.
Sure.
And so I do agree that your own drug abuse, or drug abuse that you have been forced to sit around and be privy to, is harmful. And it's obviously gives you reason to not like them, want to be around them, want to do them, whatever. My one pushback for literally anything that people have an issue with is the world doesn't stop with you. You know what I mean? The world won't stop because you're uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I think instead of being like shutting yourself off from drugs in general or any sort of substance, doesn't mean you have to do it. I don't think being fearful and not having knowledge about something doesn't make you a better person. You know what I mean?
Right.
So have the knowledge about it and then make the choice not to do it.
Well, and I think that really harkens back to the whole thing about people being afraid to have even the slightest bit of discomfort.
Right. Sit in it.
Listen,
be uncomfortable.
I don't know what that's like, so I'm very uncomfortable even talking about that. I don't want to have any part of it. So I'm just going to shut it all out. I'm going to blanket statement it all. I'm going to do whatever. Because people just are so afraid of being uncomfortable for even a minute.
Well,
and it's like, that is one of the things I have learned in the last few years, is that if you want to grow, you do have to just sit in the discomfort and learn from it and grow from it. And even if that is something like this, where you're like, well, I would never do drugs. Well, then don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
You don't have to.
No.
But you also could be less judgy. And I know that you know that when I was younger, that I was very judgy about any kind of drug use.
Yeah.
And it was because, I think, primarily of what I had seen in whatever. But it was also because of the misinformation that I had. So now that I'm older and more educated, I have more experience with people in my lives, it's more like, I don't care. I mean, as long as you're not doing something dangerous. But like smoking weed to relax or to sleep or to do whatever or to just not be a mess of anxiety, go for it.
Do it. And I think that is my biggest takeaway from any of it is people are going to do what people are going to do.
Yeah.
If they're not harming others or, wreaking complete havoc, I don't care. It's not my business, and I'm not going to shut myself off from connection or people or culture because people do bad things. I don't want to be that isolated from life,
Right.
But yeah, anyway.
I was going to tell you one more little kind of funny thing. As I mentioned earlier, that I had done speed a few times, in an attempt to, lose weight, quell the appetite, whatever. It had the opposite effect on me. Speed made me fucking hungry.
I love that.
Honest to God, I had taken some, and then I felt like I couldn't eat fast enough. I was like, I'm hyper eating now because I'm so hungry. And I was like, I don't think this is what's supposed to happen
No,
here.
I don't think so. But you did great. You tried.
So I was like, never again. Well, and now, of course, because I do have atrial fibrillation, I can't do caffeine or anything that even has a little bit of a stimulant in it because it could kill me.
Yeah.
And so I'm all,
better not.
I better just leave it alone.
I guess. Anyway, well, now we've come to the end of our podcast about the drugs.
The drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what next?
The marijuana.
Now we have to leave?
Now we have to leave. Well, you don't have to leave, but you can't stay here. No, I don't think that's
bitch.
how that goes. We do have to. We're going to end it here, and I'm going to tell you what I tell you every week, is if you like the show, please like, subscribe, share, do whatever you need to do. For those of you who haven't quite figured it out yet, get yourself a podcasting app. And we are now, we just learned that we're featured on our new podcasting app. What did I say it was called? Castbox?
Sure. I don't remember you saying that.
I don't know. I posted it on the Facebook.
Oh.
Anyway, I got a message saying, hey, you're now available on this new podcasting app.
Hell
and
yeah.
I was like, cool beans. I mean, we just can't be in enough places.
No,
I love
God.
that. So the more people that hear us and the more people that just love us.
I know.
And for those of you who've loved us since the beginning, thanks you for staying.
Keep me
and
immortal,
tell
bitch.
more people. Right. We just want to keep doing this.
Yeah. It's good times.
We're on our 34th episode. I think.
Damn.
So we've been doing this, for a little while and having a good time doing it.
Yeah.
So if you have comments or questions or concerns or whatever, or if you love us or you hate us, send us email and we will read your email. We'll probably read it on the show because
live today.
That's how we do.
Yep.
So it would seem as though at Gmail. I almost said Hotmail.
I know.
It's not Hotmail.
No, it's gmail.com.
God. Well,
she's old. She's
old.
old. She's tired. She needs to go lay down.
I do need to
She needs a little midday nap.
That sounds good. I'm going to go do that now.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
It would seem as though.